Hello Internets, this is BoneCarlos coming to you live from the Antigua shipyards to bring you my first ever StarCraft 2 casting, analytical, quote-unquote entertaining kind of theatrics. This is my first game, so I don't know what my style's gonna be. I'm just gonna go ahead and wing it and see where it goes from here. Little chat before we get started. So let's introduce the players. In the bottom left hand corner we have Coda spawning as the purple Terran, teal Terran. It's actually a nice little color scheme for the Terrans. And in the top left we have ReiSalvador spawning as the orange Protoss. Not sure why, but ReiSalvador seems familiar. Maybe played him the ladder, maybe something else, but he does seem very, very familiar. And right off the gate, we see everything is just fairly standard. We have, actually not so standard, because we have the Terran player not completely walling off. Usually you see the Terran player just completely walling this off, denying any kind of scouting opportunities. But since they're spawning so close together and ReiSalvador is actually scouting in the right direction, there's going to be plenty of time to scout. Coda throwing down a barracks. Salvador throwing down a gateway. So far everything is completely standard and up to par. The APM is actually fairly average at 2225 for this league. I believe it was a platinum, either high platinum or low diamond, I can't quite remember. So for those leagues it's pretty average, 26, and they're actually matching up fairly even for these two players. We see a refinery and an assimilator going down, as well as another pylon right at 16, so very standard build for Salvador. Not quite sure for Terran. I'm not that too familiar with Terran, especially on the timings or anything of that nature, since I am a Protoss player myself. But as you can see, everything is fairly standard. We see a Marine coming out for Coda, and Nothing yet from Salvador, so he's probably saving up those minerals to either pull up a second gateway just to be able to that much faster, or he's probably saving the minerals for something else. As you can see, Zealot is actually coming in quite nicely. He was just a little bit delayed on that. Generally like to save up time these. I had this timing here to that SCV has minerals. That's right, Salvador, he does have minerals. He's actually bringing you a little present for you, trying to help you out in that war effort. Over here in Coda's base, nothing too crazy. We actually see this little Marine is actually chasing away this little probe. He actually survives with 4 health. Good job, little probe, to be able to survive that onslaught. He actually see Coda scouting around, make sure there's no kind of proxy pylons hanging around in his base, because as you all know, if you do lose to a proxy pylon, it's imba. Everything else is pretty actually. We have a tech lab going down, which is actually pretty interesting. We have these minerals are gathering up. We have Coda enough to put down another barracks, and it's actually surprising to see a tech lab going down so early. You generally see 1 or 2 Marines going down before you put on a reactor to be able to churn out those Marines, and you actually see a second barracks coming down along with that tech lab. So we're gonna see a Marauder heavy push, while Salvador is actually building up his macro game with a fairly quick expansion at 5 minutes. Salvador must feel pretty safe to be able to pull this up. I would too if I saw these 2 Marauders and a Marine. I'd feel fairly certain of myself to be able to hold on. Actually, yeah, he has a Sentry, a Stalker, and I'm not sure where his Zealot went off to. It was actually gone. It might have been picked off somewhere. He probably had it over here and it got picked off, but I must have missed about where it went, or he might have actually canceled it. Who knows? We see 2 more gateways going down with Salvador, but the biggest issue right now is that he is supply blocked. It's going to be handled in a second with this extra pylon, but with this attack coming pretty soon, we're going to see what's going to happen. We see 2 Marauders, a Marine, and then 1 more Marauder catching up, so he actually can whale away on this Nexus for a while before Salvador has to do anything. Probably a production cycle or 2. We're going to see how it goes. He's just sitting tight, which is exactly what I would do in this situation. Not really worried too much about it up until I get these 2 extra Stalkers, Stalker and Sentry up and coming. So there you go. That's exactly... Oh, come on now. There you go. Hotkey, group these 2 together, rush down there, save that Nexus. Or is it Nexi? No, it's Nexus. And Coda is forced to retreat from this engagement, and he actually changes his mind, turns around. That Marine is actually stuck in behind enemy lines. He's not being able to do that much damage, but he actually moves up front, and the slow is done. Salvador is actually putting his damage soccer up front. Not sure what that was about. Usually you want to put your damage units behind your other units to save them, but he just said, no, I'm going to charge right on ahead and see how that goes. Didn't turn out so well for that stalker. Salvador holds off that little push by Coda. Coda already has his command center up and running. As we can see that Salvador is actually transferring a lot of probes. That is a lot of probes to be transferred over. I generally like to put over a handful, maybe 5, 6, just to keep that saturation over here at your main full while having be able to push all your extra new probes coming into your expansion. We see the command center floating on over. He's pulling up a bunker. After losing those units, this is always a safe bet to put up a bunker, just in case the Protoss feels a little bit bold and decides to attack. We actually see a forge going down with research on ground armor. Perfect. This is generally considered what you want to the upgrade you want to do against Terran, since those, it'll give you an extra point in that armor, getting your little beefier units for your zealots. I think mathematically it means that the Marines need an extra volley to finish off a zealot, which is generally why you want to get that extra defensive upgrade. We see, let's see, we see a factory, barracks going down in the production tab. We see an orbital command, more than likely his expansion, yep. And everything else, Terran infantry weapon level 1 coming up pretty soon, which is going to be canceled out nicely by that defensive upgrade. And we see a lot of stuff being built. We see a tech lab and a reactor going down at the same time for Coda. Over here in base Salvador, there's nothing else too much going down except a robotics facility. And what I also noticed that I really like and enjoy is that the money is low on both these players. It's fairly low, averagely low, which is always a good thing. You don't want to hover around 200 to 300 minerals around mid game. Anything more than that is generally a little bit too high. The APM is actually kicking up a notch in Salvador's base at 51, while the Terran player Coda is keeping it at 32. So there you go. The food differential is kind of high for Salvador compared to Coda. I mean, 51 to 75, that's a 25 food difference. And the harvesters is probably the main reason. He did get that Nexus down a little bit later, so that probably has something to do with it. Let's see what he builds out of this robotics facility. Nothing so far, but I'm kind of curious to what he's going to go. Generally, you go for an observer to be able to just scout out and see what's going on in your enemy's base, and then depending on what he has, you either just tech up to a Colossi or throw down a couple of Immortals. And seeing how that earlier battle was Marauder heavy, a couple of Immortals wouldn't be too shabby of an idea. He's throwing down an extra Gateway and a Twilight Council, both very good choices in this stage of the game. What I don't see from, oh, there it is. What I was going to say, what I don't see from Coda are medevacs, but he's actually caught a couple of them with a reactor, so he's going to be able to churn those out fairly quickly. He's keeping his energy somewhat low on his orbital commands. He could actually has enough for one more mule if he so chooses, but I believe he's kind of saving that just in case he needs to do a quick scan for whatever reason. We see Blink being researched by Salvador. This is just really fun. I love doing this, just being able to just blink up here, harass, and then being able to blink back down is generally quite fun, especially once you get that observer out. For the unit counting station, we see probes being built by the handful by Salvador. He's actually stopped, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't stopped building any probes for a while now. He's actually getting a little bit saturated in both sides, so he can actually cut that back or build an extra expansion here, which he's actually gearing up to do. Salvador, great minds think alike, and I love it. And we see one medevac over here with Coda. We see two more over here and an observer here, and here comes a drop. I was actually looking for that fourth medevac. And we see the rally point is going to go ahead and go around the side of it and just going to go ahead and situate itself right there. And more than likely, obviously, he's going to drop it here in the mineral line or right over here, pick off a couple of probes. Once he sees those enemies coming up, he's just going to pack up and go home. This is generally what I like building a lot on. Here comes the Colossus tech. Generally building more than one observer. We're going to see a two-pronged attack. Beautiful play by Coda. I like building more than one or two observers at a time to be able to just spot this off just in case something like this happens. I would have waited just a scotch while these units got into position, so when he moves all these units over here, they will go attack. And he's managed to bring down the simulator, and here comes the enemy. He's more than likely going to pick these up, go ahead and fly home, and I would have loved to see Coda just come in here and just pounce on just this unprepared front from Salvador to be able to just caused maximum damage. This was a little bit too late, Coda. If you would have been able to sync these up at the same time, it would have been that much better. We see Stim already being researched, and then, oh, that Colossus is going to be taken down very quickly. That rally point was just not the greatest, but we see that Coda is actually getting decimated here. There's just too much DPS from Salvador to be able to, for the Terran player to be able to hold off. We see him just packing up, going home, but as you can see, Blink very, very useful in these kind of situations. He's actually a second drop over here. The main has actually done very well. He's taking down pros just left and right. We see another drop coming over here. Salvador is just in panic mode, just trying to salvage as much as he can. He's gonna be able to pick down 1, maybe 2 medevacs, but the damage has been done. Over at the units lost station, we see, wow, 47 units lost, 4,700 resources, and that is not exactly from, not all from the army. He lost a ton of probes, while Coda only lost 34 in that exchange. We're gonna see how that fares up in the income tab, and we're gonna see Terran player obviously ahead by 1,300. We got harvester count is actually evened up, just completely evened up. We actually see a third base by Salvador is finally done. So the damage over here can be forgiven somewhat, especially if Coda doesn't know about that expansion, and he sure doesn't. He has no idea this expansion here, which is fantastic for Salvador. Salvador is actually in a pretty decent position, especially if he doesn't, if he keeps going the way if this game keeps going the way it is. But this harassment is just proving a lot more difficult. One photon cannon here would stop that, but since the main is already almost completely mined out, I wouldn't see the point. Just leaving a couple of stalkers here would probably be more beneficial. Putting down a photon cannon here or here just to stop any kind of harass would actually make more sense. We see a couple of assimilators, a harvester here, none over here. It could be forgiven since he is kind of holding off all these draws, but being able to manage these probes and be able to put them onto these assimilators and make sure something like this doesn't happen is generally what'll change the game for you. We actually see the third expansion coming down for Coda. I'm pretty sure it's going to be morphed into a planetary fortress just to power up them mules. The food count is somewhat even. 131 for Salvador, 120 for Coda, and we actually see the macro slipping. I actually see the macro slipping for Coda a bit. He's hovering around 1,500 minerals. That's just no good at all. He does have, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 barracks. So he's going to be able to churn out these units fairly quickly. Going to be able to spend these resources as soon as possible. And there is a drop by Coda. He's going to take down quite a bit of probes. I mean, a blink over here, it's not really going to do much. Just pack up, go home, Coda. Good job. And oh, it is taken down. Oh, he just didn't do it quite fast enough to be able to save those units. Farewell, rest in pieces. We have Salvador actually knows exactly where the main army of Coda is, and with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Vikings, we're going to be able to take down plenty of Colossi. We have 1, 2, 3 Colossi joining the field, and that's actually all of his Colossi, or Coloxen, as Day 9 likes to count. I'm not quite sure when it turns into Coloxen, but this is probably a gaggle of Colossi. So we're just gonna go see how it goes. We're gonna see 13 Zealots, 3 Colossi, 22 Stalkers, and 4 Sentries for Salvador. While on his side, he got 3 Medevacs, 6 Vikings, 26 Marauders, and 27 Marines. Kind of just a standard ball for both players at this point. They're gearing up to an attack. Let's see how this turns out. A little bit off Listen, I can see a little bit more Blink Micro to be able to take these out. And force fields off. Oh, Coda, what are you doing? These aren't doing anything. A little bit faster replays probably would have saved all this entire force. 1 Colossi goes down. The second one's going to go down fairly quickly. And then we're pummeling away at the third one. We're going to see if this one goes down. And it quite easily does. Wow, look at Blink Micro would be fantastic, and then Coda's army is just getting destroyed. Here he has very few units left, and we're probably going to see a GG pretty soon. The mules are actually causing a distraction, saying shoot me, and oh, Salvador, just a little bit of a Blink Micro would have been able to clean up these forces quite nicely, just blinking away, bringing up those fresh units to the front, would have been able to clear this up. Instead, what we have here is a fairly even exchange. If we look over here at the units lost station, Terran actually lost a lot more, but in resource-wise, Protoss lost about 2,000 more resources in that exchange. We see the mules powering up and safely setting up on this third expansion, while we have 3 harvests over here, 4 over here. A little bit of a misclick, and oh, High Templar on the field for Salvador. This is fantastic. How fantastic if you would have seen a little bit more Marines, but I'm seeing a lot more Marauders, so I would have rather him saved up maybe for a couple of Immortals, putting down an extra robotics facility to be able to pump out Immortals and Colossi at the same time. For the upgrades, let's see what upgrades we have here. We got 3 wow, we got 3 weapons, fully upgraded weapons. We have 1 upgrade in the armor, and we actually see an Archon coming along the way. He does have psionic storm research, so we're gonna see how well he is with those storms. Nothing too fancy over here in Coda. He hasn't really moved beyond any kind of tier 1, and we see a bunch, just a bunch of idle SCVs here. Just transferring them over here would be a lot a better bet for him. What kind of he has 2 upgrades for his infantry, which is pretty good, but this force is fairly small. They are especially compared to Salvador's. And here we go, another exchange coming up. Again, blink away those stalkers to be able to save it. This Archon is goes down very quickly, and an EMP actually goes down. Those storms are ripping through the enemies, but not much can be done. He actually retreats. He's retreating. Oh wow, all that's left was 2 High Templar and a Colossi. Coda could have just pushed forward and just wiped them out. So we do see a ghost coming down, which is fantastic. Let's see if he has any kind of nukes. Let's see if I can spot where this Ghost Academy is. See if he has a nuke being researched. No, he does not. It would be fantastic to see a couple of nukes coming down. And wow, that Protoss force was just churned through like butter fairly easily. He's over here taking the gold expansion, but I would worry more about building up that army instead of trying to get another expansion. I mean, you have a completely fully saturated over here, and he actually wow, he's actually mined out at a lot of his bases, so taking the gold is actually very smart on his play. Good job, Salvador. Pardon my misinformation. Coda still hasn't seen these idle SCVs. Probably gonna hurt him. Definitely gonna hurt him. I mean, right now they're just useless. They're tying up food. Neither are completely maxed out, but they're tying up food, giving him a false sense of how big his army is. While just another idle SCV here. I mean, this is, if I could just say one thing to Coda, would be just to work on your macro, just to keep your minerals down, just keep it going how Salvador is right now. And he's trying to make a push over here, and Salvador really doesn't have anything. And we see EMPs going down, churning. Oh, that Colossi is just done. These stalkers, again, Blink Micro will probably help a couple, but there is just no way he would have been able to stand up to this force that's coming up right here. He's just trying to warp in a couple of units, but against what Coda has is nothing. Salvador GG's along with Coda. Very fair play on both sides. So Salvador did keep his macro pretty well, but his micro was a lot to be there was a lot lacking in his micro, especially when he was just blinking away, especially not blinking away. We see what harassment can do from a Terran, even though his macro isn't up to par. But that is it for this replay. I hope you guys enjoyed. If not, leave a comment down below on what I could do to make these more enjoyable for you guys. And as always, leave a link if you guys want me to do a specific replay, and in what style. I'll take any kind of style at all. I'm fairly versatile when it comes to talking, quote unquote fairly. So yeah, just leave a replay that you guys want me to do and what style you would like me to do in it, and we'll see how it goes. This is BoneCarlos signing off.